By the time this video is all finished and ready to be seen by your sexy little eyes, I will have had to watch The Farm 3 times. 3 times! Three times way too many. This movie is just so gruesome and brutal and disturbing and over the top, and you name it, really. So this is your official warning of sorts from the squad here. We're also rocking some farm vibe earrings here, featuring this little pig. And yes, let's address the elephant in the room. I'm embarrassed to say that I do not own any cow earrings. How did that happen? I don't know. So we're going with pig and chickens, okay? I'm so embarrassed. But alright, if you're ready for your eyes, ears, and brain to bleed, I suppose it's time for us to embark on this dung heap of a movie. And dung heap is a very generous way to describe it, as you're about to see. And although this movie's very graphic, I will do it my absolute darndest to make it as PG for your cute little innocent eyes. Or, you know, PG-13. We'll see. And now The Farm here begins just like any other wholesome, lovely horror movie out there. Road trip! These ill-fated road trippers being a couple, whose names are Nora and Alec. But along their road trip trekkings, they get a little hungry, they get a little famished. And by this point in their road trip, they're kind of in the backwoods country, middle of nowhere. But even though they're in the middle of whoopie-doo-dah, they come across a diner and stop in for a little bite to eat, and they end up getting the American classic, burger and fry. You cannot go wrong with that. Although I would recommend the addition of a shake, maybe, you know, to make it a full American experience. And while they're going to Chowtown, they notice some creepy guy situated at the counter, just staring at them. But Nora's just kind of like, he's just one of those creepy country folk, you know. It's obvious Nora doesn't have the highest opinion of country folk or the people in the backwoods. My redneck brethren. And after they've finished their meal, on the way out of the diner, that guy stops Nora, blocking her path to tell her she's not safe here. So Nora is obviously weirded out, but she kind of just brushes by him and brushes him off as some random creepy, loony creeper. So they get back on the road, only to discover that, of course, as in all horror movies, they're getting low on gas. You know what happens now. So after they get gas, Alec asks the clerk, so many tongue twisters for me. Anywho, he asks the clerk if there are any good B&B places nearby or hotels, because they're getting tired and it's getting toward evening and they want a little bit of a rest, a wee little nap, if you will. And the clerk tells him that there are some cabins only like 20 minutes up the road, so perfect. Although, again, Nora was kind of creeped out or irked by the clerk, and she's like, I don't know if we should take any cabins or sleeping places that he recommends. But Alec is more chill with it and less judgmental, Nora. And he's the one driving, so he's more tired, so he just wants some place to rest his head. So when they do arrive at the cabins, they are a little creepy, a little run down, but, you know, there are other cars in the parking lot, so it's not as much of a serial killer vibe as it could be. And when they enter the front office, they find it empty and devoid of life, although it looks like someone was recently eating there, so... And Nora takes that as their sign that they should leave and move on and find somewhere else to stay. But Alec is just like, okay, calm down, come on, we'll just look around and see if we can find anyone first, okay? And when they look around a bit and head upstairs, they do indeed find someone. And he's low-key, high-key, giving backwoods serial killer vibes, just a tad. But he seems nice enough, if not a little bit disturbing. So the worker escorts them to a cabin that they can stay the night in, and it's a little dusty and old looking, but, you know, it's rustic. But of course, Nora is not too pleased at the accommodation, and she's kind of dismissive to the worker, who is a bit of a chatterbox, and she kind of just says it straight to the point, like, yeah, we'd really like to stop talking and be left alone. And the worker gets a little or a lottle offended and kind of leaves in a huff. The undertones of the encounter were a little concerning, to say the least. But what's more concerning is the bunk in the corner of their room that has a massive blood stain on the mattress, or the quilt, that they don't see. They're not aware of it, but we are. And as much as Nora does not want to stay there, Alec is tired, so she acquiesces, like, fine, just one night. One night, babe. And Alec is just way more chill about it and kind of like, well, a bed's a bed, right? Which is not true. I have seen some scary hotel beds. I've seen some stuff, man. Anywho, they go and get ready for bed, and then get into bed, even though it looks like it's still light out. People who go to bed early are just unsettling. But as they get into bed and, you know, fall to sleep, they're entirely unaware to the fact that there's a whole-ass, grown-ass man lying underneath their bed, waiting for them to drift off. And when they do drift off, this whole-ass man starts slowly and quietly scooting his way out from under the bed until he's standing over them. And because things just keep getting worse and worse, this dude is also wearing a sheep mask. I don't like masks. I have a thing about the uncanny valley. Like, that bothers me so much. That's what gets me in horror movies. Uncanny valley. And this movie is full of it, okay? So he's standing over them right before he moves in, and that's the last thing the camera sees, at least in that moment. And Nora wakes up in a tiny little dog cage or dog crate in the middle of this kind of brick rundown corral type structure. And as she's tugging and yanking at the cage and screaming for Alec, her cage is thumped by a horrendously creepy man in a goat mask. And in my humble opinion, this is the creepiest mask in the whole movie. And there are a lot of creepy masks in this movie, so prepare yourself. As if the masks are the worst part of this movie. They're not. Spoiler, they're not. Anywho, the goat man over here is not too happy at her ruckus, and everything about him is so unsettling and disturbing and skin crawly. But the goat man just kind of trots away as she continues hitting at the the wire bars, kicking and trying to escape. Right as the goat man returns with another guy, a dude in a cow mask, so I guess cowman from henceforth. And they bring over a canister of water, which they then dump over Nora. And then it cuts to Nora waking up. Like, why? What's in that water? Was that not water? What kind of water makes you unconscious? Anyway, ignoring that plot hole, Nora wakes up from her near-fatal bath, strapped in a chair with her legs strapped in DIY stirrups of some kind. And, you know, if you wake up in that predicament, it's never a good sign. Nothing good's gonna come from that. And then a woman wearing a bunny mask, so they're not all men here, apparently. Bunny woman comes over to Nora with a metal syringe, or cannula, if that's the right word. I don't think it is. And to spare you the details of this scene, let's just say the bunny woman puts that metal syringe cannula thing up a certain somewhere. Why am I watching this movie? Why did I watch this movie? And then after that's over, the bunny woman dips, just leaves. Amid Nora's B-list acting of profanities and cursing, she's yelling after her. Like, if nothing else, could the acting not have been better in this movie? Nora's next guests are the same goat man, cowman duo from earlier, and they come over to untie her and carry her out of this little barn, shack, shelter thing. Medical hut, if you will, or won't. And then they shove her into another dog cage and lock her in, but this dog cage is atop a little red wagon. You know, is that Little Tikes? So Nora then gets taken on a little ride. Whee! Passing by other various mask wearers along the way, as they're going about their communal tasks, I guess, and the upkeep of the farm. You know, just your run-of-the-mill farm chores and duties, like, harvesting meat from a strung-up naked dead man, you know, as you do. We've all done that, right? Everyone here, you know, this is a safe place. Oh, that wasn't one of your chores growing up? Well, my bad, fancy pants. But to these folk, it's just another Tuesday to them. Nora's fun little sightseeing wagon ride, it comes to an end outside of a barn, where she's thrown into a stall and locked inside. But hey, at least it's a room with a view, right? And then the camera cuts to a different barn, I guess the male barn, where the camera pans across rows of dudes locked up in tiny dog cages. And at the end of that row, we see Alec in a cage of his own with a gag in his mouth. And he ain't looking too pleased to be there, which is more than understandable. I'll give him that. And then a group of masked men enter the barn and start dispatching a few of the men in the cages with a little bonk over the head, or a big old bonk over the head. And they end up going over to Alec and hitting him over the head as well. And then they load up some of their victims of the bonk and put them on a little wagon and wheel them away. And then those poor guys are wheeled down to, I guess, the butcher's? Because why not? Why not? After which, we see that same shady cabin guy, the cabin worker from earlier, on the compound, and without a mask. So apparently he's part of this all too. Which should come as a surprise to no one. I mean, the vibe is there. The serial killer vibe was there from the beginning. And then a pig man comes down and sits across from cabin guy, where cabin guy tells him that the food needs to be ready in 3 hours, and that they're going to be cooking for around 80 people. So a full-on smorgasbord, huh? A feast! Yay! Of the forbidden meat. Like I said, lovely movie, lovely movie. You with me still? You surviving still? And then the cabin man goes into the kitchen and starts barking orders at everyone who's cooking in there, and apparently he's in charge, I guess? And he's telling them, like, this food needs to be perfect. You need to do better than last time. And then he drops this banger of a line.
This time, use a little finesse.
Great acting. Like, barely anyone talks in this movie, but when they do, I wish they wouldn't. I wish they hadn't of. And whoever's coming for dinner has got this cabin guy all stressed the hell out, and, you know, maybe the surrounding masked men and women, but, you know, you can't really see their expressions. And the only other unmasked dude in this masked compound of psychos is a guy named Andrew. And this guy, Andrew, was in the barn and kind of messing with some of the cattle, if you will, the human beings that are treated like cattle. Meanwhile, Cabin Guy, who is apparently a big cheese here, he's on the phone dealing with an unhappy customer, so apparently they sell the meat as well. And the customer's not too happy because apparently they found a tooth in their meat, and apparently this happened at a wedding. So apparently they do catering, just in case anyone's got a wedding or function coming up that you need food for. Keep them in mind. And then we get a bit of a Nora update, where she's meeting her stall neighbor, who apparently has been in there 2 years. And if you're wondering how she survived that long in that place without becoming someone's dinner, let's just say this compound also, it supplies milk as well. Why did I watch this movie, man? But now you're watching it with me and you're stuck here. You're staying till the end, so you suffer as much as I did. And am currently suffering. Anyway, and Nora's neighbor tells her that she's reached the point where she can't produce anymore. So, she's about to be taken out back and probably become some lovely person's lunch or something. But at the same time, this woman says that she's glad for it. She's glad that it's almost over. And one of Nora's other neighbors farther down, out of Nora's eyesight or eyeshot, right? She's over there crying, and then Nora's neighbor tells her that this crying girl is named Ash, and she's only been here 2 weeks. And she obviously still has not come to terms with it. But by this point, she's just hopeless to the idea of escape, saying that they'll always find you. Then again, I reckon that the masked psycho's vision would be somewhat impaired or obstructed or limited to those tiny eye holes on the mask. So maybe you could have slipped by their peripheral. And, on top of all the other horrible things you could say about this movie, and there are lots, there are tons. For a horror thriller, there are sure of a lot of masked people just wandering around on screen, like doing nothing productive in general or to the plot, just kind of moseying about, just doing the most menial things that they could have absolutely cut from the final cut, and maybe should have. Maybe the whole movie should have been cut. Let's be honest here. So after that, 3 guys head down to the dairy to take care of the neighbor, Nora's neighbor, that isn't useful to them anymore, dispatching her right in front of Nora as well. And after they've taken the body away, Nora's kind of just huddled up in shock and trauma in the corner and freaking out. But right then her stable door starts rattling, and when it opens, it's Alec on the other side. Yay! Her hero. So they have a very brief reunion before the both of them sneak out of the stalls, almost immediately getting noticed by that goat man, but again, he got that peripheral block. So they scampered their way under a bridge, right as a masked psycho walks atop it. Impeccable timing, but they don't get noticed, So when the coast is clear, Romeo and Juliet hobble over to a garage. And I say hobble because Alec is over here hobbling. I mean, he did take a pretty nasty blow to the head earlier, so. And in this garage they sneak into is a massive truck, which Nora climbs into and tries to start, but it won't start because, they're the luckiest people on Earth. But she has to quickly ditch her attempts at starting the truck anyway as the goat man approaches the garage. So she scrambles out of the truck and her and Alec hide on the other side of it, but she leaves the truck door open. So when the goat man enters the garage, he obviously notices the open truck door, and of course immediately gets suspicious, but his growing suspicions are nipped in the bud right as an alarm bell goes off in the distance. So goat man rushes out of the garage and gives Nora and Alec the opportunity to escape. Well, at least escape the garage. So the couple hobbles out of the garage and through a patch of woods and finds refuge in an old kind of derelict church building, but the church is very much still on the compound and not too far away from the center of it, so. You may be asking why they even bothered going inside to potentially corner themselves, to which my response would be, I have no damn idea. Because right then, Cowman enters the church and sits down at a pew and starts, praying to sheep Jesus, because yes, there's a sheep Jesus on the wall. And as Cowman is over there praying for his many, many myriad sins, Nora and Alec are hiding in the corner in the back. They decide to make a break for it, but they're obviously not too subtle or quiet about it because Cowman overhears and he starts trudging after them. And trudging after them with nothing more than a somewhat accelerated pace, which is the fastest I've seen any of these psychos move thus far this whole movie. For some reason, they refuse to do anything but just walk. Okay. And for some reason, none of the psychos wearing masks speak. So I guess you could say they don't talk the talk, but they walk the walk. And they don't run. So amid the clatter of that distant ringing alarm bell, which is probably alarming people that they have some escaped cattle, or cattle, I think I've gotten too comfortable with using that word for the human beings, but that's what happens when you watch this movie 3 times. Anywho, Nora and Alec escape from the church and scurry into the nearby shrubbery and brush, only for Alec to step into a bear trap. Because of course people like this have bear traps everywhere. Think, Alec. Come on, Alec, it's not like you're in a rush or anything. And Nora is trying to tug Alec free, which is not what you do when their foot's stuck in a bear trap. And Cowman from the church is hot, or semi-hot, on their trail. But slow or not, he's beelining toward them, and Alec is very much stuck. So Nora, being the girlfriend of the year, of the decade, the century even, she decides to cut her losses and ditch Alec, and run into the shrubbery and brush to get away. Leaving Alec to the clutches of the Cowman and recently arrived Goatman as well, who tag team lifting a big-ass rock over Alec's head, and then they drop it onto him. So now his head is crushed. Like a grape. Ew. I think I have been watching this movie too much. I'm turning into them. So Nora races into a nearby barn for cover, and she hurries up to one of the guys in a cage, and she's asking him, how the hell do I get out of here? Please help me, help me. But I think you're asking the wrong person here because, given that he's still locked up in a tiny dog cage, I wouldn't assume him the master of escape. He's not giving the Houdini vibe. Well, apparently this dude does know a little something. He tells her about the bus that they were transported to this hellscape on, informing her that the key to the bus is kept in the main house, by a window. Don't know how he knows that, but let's just go with it, I guess. Anywho, Nora gratefully takes this little tidbit of knowledge and rushes the hell out of the barn, right as the only two unmasked psychos, Andrew and Cabin Guy, menacingly walk into the room after her. No one runs here. I've yet to see one person running or even hurrying this whole movie. Now Alec-less, Nora makes her way toward the house, making her way over to the podunk gas station they have on the compound, where one of the psychos has just filled up a car and is driving away, and oh my gosh, they even drive slow. Holy hell. Anyway, the car ends up being driven into a car lot with a bunch of other abandoned cars, most likely the cars of their past victims, or current victims, because, there's still a lot of cattle alive on the property, or cattle. And Nora follows after the car since, it's driving at turtle speed, grabbing a mallet from who knows where, and bludgeoning the previous driver over his head. And right as Nora gets into the car, a herd of those masked psychos comes walking after her, speed walking this time. They're giving it a little more effort this time. Especially since she actually starts the car and begins driving. Again, at a turtle pace. Why is everything so slow? But seriously though, why is she driving so damn slow? I thought she was, in fear of her life or something, but the herd is only at a light jog keeping up with her. Regardless, she doesn't get very far. The car running out of gas a mere minute into her turtle-paced freedom. So I guess they only fill the cars enough to be able to drive them to the lot to leave them, so there ain't much gas in there. So Nora gets out of the car and runs, and since they're all so allergic to any type of speed, she manages to get away from that incoming herd, running through the main kitchen area, as they pretty much walk after her. Oh! Were Heelys not in the budget? And on her mad rush toward the house, Nora passes by her old barn, her old stall, memories. So she unlocks the stall door belonging to Ash, that one girl who was crying, who's only been there 2 weeks, and recruits Ash and then hurriedly takes her with her, since, she let her last partner in crime's head get smashed in, so. So I guess she needs a new escape buddy. And with the first speed I've seen the entire movie, Ash and Nora sprint over to the house, where the bus key is sitting out right in the open, right near the window, and the window is wide open. So, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. Or it's just a cheap, convenient way to progress the plot. Either or with this movie, I don't know. So Nora very easily snatches the keys, rushes over to the bus with Ash in tow, and they scramble up into the bus in a panicked hurry. Nora solely honing her focus on getting the key into the ignition and trying to start the bus, and she actually does get the bus started. Glory hallelujah! And Nora is hyped that she actually got the bus started, but Ash isn't nearly as excited. And as Nora finally turns around, she sees why. Because now Nora finally picks up on the fact that they have a wee bit of company, i.e. an entire busload of those creepy masked psychos, all just sitting in the bus seats and wait, silently staring at them through those tiny little holes in their creepy ass masks. Those masks. And even though this movie is horrible in so many different ways, this scene actually got me. It's so creepy. Yuck. They were so close. They were so close. And then it cuts to all those same psychos posed around a table, Last Supper style, of all things, with cooked and ready to eat Nora and Ash posed on the dinner table with an apple in their mouth. And you know, look no further than the main cover of the movie to get the full visual. It's just the rotten cherry on top, isn't it? And then after a painfully long shot of the camera slowly panning out on this horrible scene, it finally cuts to black. Finally ending this dung heap crap fest of a movie that I watched 3 times. If my psyche wasn't broken before, well, it's shattered now. It's shattered now. But thank goodness that movie's over. Thank goodness I can stop talking about it. I'm sweating here. So you may or may not have picked up on the undertone or the overtone that this movie seems to be about, like, animal awareness or how we treat livestock and whatnot. Because even as someone who's not a vegan, I can wholeheartedly agree with the fact that livestock and cattle and all the animals that are used for consumption are treated terribly and far worse than they should be. I'm not personally against eating meat, but it's just the way that we get that meat should not be so horrific. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to torture the animals, and they should not live in puny, tiny little cells. That's just terrible. But for this movie, I was getting the vibe that it was just masquerading as animal cruelty awareness, you know? Due to the sheer lack of effort put into this movie, the almost non-existent script, the abysmal pacing, lackluster plot. This movie more so comes across as a thinly veiled torture porn type of movie, with its main objective to be an edgy shock factor fest. It was kind of like, let's see how gross we can make it, and then we can just get away with the fact that it's made for animal awareness, or animal cruelty awareness. That's just the vibe I was getting. I'm also a cynical asshole, so that could just be me. But whatever your takeaway may be from this video about this movie, let this takeaway be a more prominent one. Don't watch this movie. I mean, unless you really want to, I can't stop you. I'm not your dad. I may not be your parental figure here. I mean, I could be. I don't know what that means, but hear me out. I'm just here to inform you that this is not worth the watch, and it is absolutely a waste of 1 hour and 20 minutes. Okay? Take that as you will. And what should be an even redder flag for this movie is that Leroy loved it. He loved every second of it. So take that as you will, and promise your mother here that you will not watch it, okay? I've already shown you enough. I've shown you too much, and I'm sorry. I just wouldn't want those sweet little eyes of yours getting hurt.